Today we're going to be recapping a romance manhwa called The Remarried Empress. Please consider subscribing to the channel and liking the video. It'd help a lot. Navier is a woman that comes from the Trophy family, an esteemed noble family that has produced several empresses through time. Navier herself was chosen by the former emperor to marry his son, the crown prince, and rule the kingdom next to him. Even though it was a political marriage, Navier and the crown prince, Sovieshu, had been on good terms since they were young, playing when they were kids and spending a lot of time together as young adults, discussing the future of the kingdom they would nurture together. She had always been the perfect empress. That is, until that day. We are now before a grown Navier, who stands with her arms crossed in a beautiful and elegant red gown and a crown placed upon her head. With an impassive look on her face, she says, "I accept the divorce." The room, full of nobles, erupts in murmur, and some even object. However, not Rashta. Oh no! Rashta, the silver-haired girl who is known as the emperor's lover, pretends to be nervous at the situation, but can't even hide the smirk that spreads across her lips as Navier makes the statement. When she notices Navier staring at her, she pretends to be shocked once more, looking at a now grown Sovieshu, who also looks troubled. The priest asks her if she will really agree to the divorce without any objection, with what looks to be a regretful face, but Navier is still determined as she once more says she will accept it. Sovieshu then breathes out in relief, thinking that he's sorry about the situation, but that it's fortunate it was so easily handled. Sovieshu, you little son of a... You know what, guys? I'm up to date with the story, so my anger for some characters has already escalated to way more than what is appropriate at this stage of the storytelling. I will try to refrain from making any comments about them until the story progresses a bit. Try being the key word. Moving on, the pathetic excuse of a man, that is Sovieshu, sighs in relief, but the feeling is not long-lived. Our female lead does not take long to add her own conditions to the situation. Not even 2 minutes after she's divorced, Navier requests to the priest, "I ask permission to remarry." Oh, Sovieshu, things are going to get fun for you now. Both Sovieshu and Rashta seem surprised and astonished at her words, and the murmurs in the room are even louder than before. Amidst all of that, Navier stands tall with her arms still crossed over her chest and a very confident smile playing on her lips. The priest stutters as he tries to confirm if he heard her right, to which Navier smiles in amusement. Sovieshu can be heard demanding to know who she even plans on remarrying, and right then and there a chuckle is heard from one side of the room. The puzzled audience turn their heads around. A man with golden hair and purple eyes makes his way to the center of the stage and smiles shamelessly as he removes the veil that hid his identity and asks, "Do I come up now?" The viewers quickly recognize the man and wonder why he's actually there, but he pays no attention to them and just strides past them as if he were taking a stroll in the park. His smile does not waver as he walks straight to where Navier stands. A still confused Sovieshu starts to demand an explanation, but he is cut short by the couple that stand next to each other with confident smiles as Navier states that she will be marrying him. And that, folks, is what in the remarried empress community we call the divorce scene. The scene actually takes place in the middle of the story, but the author showed it to us first so that it would serve as the carrot at the end of the stick that will guide us and keep us determined through chapters and chapters of backstory. The journey might be long, but that is one fine carrot. It all began some months prior to the event we just witnessed. We are in a pre-divorce Navier's chambers, where some of her ladies-in-waiting, Eliza and Laura, are complaining about something, but immediately stop themselves once they see Navier walk into the room. Navier, however, is very quick to catch on since they seem to be acting different than usual, and while they arrange her hair, she asks if something happened when she was gone. Apparently, the Emperor Sovieshu had gone hunting and came back with more than just some game. He brought back a woman covered in dirt and made the Empress's ladies-in-waiting wash her, for which they were very offended since they were only meant to serve Her Highness herself. I am honestly surprised. I mean, the issue here is not that the Emperor brought some woman he's apparently taken a liking to, but rather that they had to wash her. Anyway, Both ladies-in-waiting agree that though dirty, she seemed extremely beautiful, although not as much as the Empress herself. They then go on to hesitantly tell Navier that it seems the Emperor seemed very fond of this woman. There we go. Apparently he was really close to her, asking all about her well-being and seeming very worried about it. Navier thinks nothing of it as she takes another sip of her tea, but the ladies-in-waiting think it's something to be worried about. Navier ponders on what to do about the situation, but decides to do nothing, dismissing the issue as an act of kindness from Sovieshu, who she knows to be a very generous man, and probably brought her out of pity. Of course, Navier thinks this. Sovieshu and her have been together since they were children. She trusts him wholeheartedly. But Navier is going to have to find out just what kind of man Sovieshu really is, the hard way. Some men really suck. Curiosity wins over Navier as that night, during dinner with the Emperor, she mentions that she heard about the slave he found and asks him if it's true. Sovieshu tries to dodge the question, but is unable to do so as Navier insists on knowing the truth. He seems to be troubled when he does not reply, and after Navier seems confused, he only tells her to not press him for an answer, and that they should discuss other things since they only have dinner together once a week. This man is too generous. This child! Navier knows not to ask again since he seems irritated by the question. Back in her room, she seems rather upset and her ladies-in-waiting comfort her. She tells them the Emperor told her that he found the girl in a hunting trap and that she's not a slave, and to never bring the subject up again. Both Laura and Eliza are angry at this, but Laura seems absolutely enraged, as she says that these are clear signs of an affair, and questions the Emperor's actions. Because if he supposedly only brought her back to treat her, why is he so adamant to talk about it? Same girl, same. Eliza has to tell Laura to leave to calm down, and once alone, tells the Empress that he's just worried about the girl and it will all end soon. But Navier starts to explain that her mother had told her not to get hurt if Sovieshu ever brought a lover. Apparently, all the previous emperors had done it. She reasons that even if he takes lovers, they can only have the position of concubine since she is the Empress. And that either way, Sovieshu and her had never really loved each other passionately since they were in a political marriage. However, as she says this, she is clutching her dress and wondering why she feels so empty. Oh, Navier. The only comfort that she can now have is that since the possible mistress is a slave, she will never be able to enter high society because of their laws. So at least she won't ever have to interact with her husband's lover. Or so she thought. Navier is in the garden leisurely reading a book when she hears people gossiping about how the Emperor is extremely infatuated with the woman he brought to the palace. Tired of listening to it, Navier closes her book shut and gets up to leave. She's walking on the garden when she suddenly hears a voice she doesn't recognize. Turning her head in that direction, she comes face to face with none other than the mistress herself. Rashta looks up at Navier from the ground with a wide grin, while Navier can only look at her with a puzzled expression, not really understanding the situation. Deciding that it's best just to leave, she turns around, only for the mistress to call out to her by addressing her as, "Hey you!" Hey you? To the Empress? Navier herself is in disbelief as she turns to face her once more, while Rashta determinedly stands and makes her way to stand in front of the Empress herself. With no bows and no respect for the crown whatsoever, she simply introduces herself as Rashta with a broad smile, to which Navier barely replies. Sighing, Navier turns around to leave once more, but Rashta simply won't let it go. So she grabs onto the Empress's dress, ripping it in the process. Navier's ladies-in-waiting run to her aid and slap Rashta's hands away from her. Rashta seems to be on the verge of tears as she apologizes for not addressing her properly, saying that she didn't know what to call her, to which Laura explains that Navier is the Empress of the kingdom, and so Rashta should treat her accordingly. Much to everyone's surprise, Rashta already knows that she's the Empress, but she simply thought she need not address her as such and reintroduces herself as the woman the Emperor had brought back to the palace. Navier finally understands that Rashta is the slave Sovieshu had brought to heel, although the ladies that accompany her state that she's in fact not a slave. Rashta continues to speak to Navier casually with a total disregard to her status, saying that they are going to be seeing each other a lot more often now, so she wanted to meet her. Navier is incredulous at all of the things the girl is spouting and tells Rashta to call her Your Majesty when she asks, but Rashta seems to be taken aback by it. Navier attempts to leave once more, but Rashta still tries to grab at her, for which Laura slaps her hand once more, questioning her disrespectful attitude and calling her filthy. Guys, I know it seems like Rashta is super nice and Navier is some entitled Karen, but trust me, we are on Navier's side. We are not against Rashta because of her origins, like it really doesn't matter where she comes from or what her role in the past was. We're against her because Rashta is one colossal pile of trash who wants everyone to think she's an innocent pile of flowers. Do not root for her, even for 1 minute. Anyway, just as Laura is slapping Rashta's hand away, none other than the Emperor himself appears, and he literally dashes past his own Empress without so much as acknowledging her to comfort a crying Rashta. Navier can't help but have a strange feeling as she looks at the scene and clutches at her chest, but tries to disregard it and leaves. Sovieshu, however, calls out to her, telling her to leave her lady-in-waiting behind. Laura trembles as she fears what the Emperor will do to her. But Navier stands in front of her and blatantly refuses. Knowing that if the Emperor punishes her, who has a high status for speaking that way to a woman, who isn't even an official concubine yet, it will humiliate both Laura and herself. Sovieshu is adamant to let the issue go, stating that she is his subject before her lady-in-waiting and ordering the guards to lock her up for 3 days. While Laura can only continue to tremble, Rashta lets out a small laugh that no one else can hear. She actually laughs while shedding her crocodile tears. See? I told you she's trash. Navier still defends her lady-in-waiting, telling the Emperor he's going overboard, but Sovieshu is absolutely enraged as a pitiful-looking Rashta inches closer to him. To spare the Empress of Sovieshu's wrath, Laura agrees to take on the punishment even though she is terrified, and the Emperor leaves with Rashta stuck to him as he comforts her. Not much later, Navier is once more in her room when she is told that Sovieshu requests for her presence. She goes to meet him and Sovieshu tells everyone else to go and waves for her to get closer. Now, one would have thought that he called her over to talk about the mistress he took in, but no. He actually questions Navier because she accompanied Laura herself to the punishment cell, for which he is very annoyed. He apparently expected for her to fire Laura and send her away. Sovieshu seems exasperated when Navier is still unwilling to fire Laura and literally says, "Can't you just obediently follow my orders for once?" No. No, she can't. She's the Empress? The one who doesn't have to bend to the Emperor's orders? Frustrated, Sovieshu says that it's because she's like that she can't even compare. Excuse me? Did you just say that out loud, you piece of trash? Apparently, even he has enough IQ to realize that he's gone too far, and tells Navier to leave while she wears a melancholic expression. Tired, the Emperor rings a bell to call for a servant to bring him something to drink, but Rashta walks in instead, acting all cute and innocently saying she will be serving him because she wants to help around, not to feel like a burden. Sovieshu finds her cute and refreshing and looks at her warmly as she excitedly eats some treats. He explains that he likes how happy she gets over simple things, whereas Navier will scarcely react to him gifting her the best jewels. Rashta says that it might be because since she's grown as a rich lady, she's never known the harsh reality of the world, and is not appreciative of the simplest of things. She then mentions that it appears to be that Navier still doesn't know about Sovieshu making her his concubine, but Sovieshu reassures her by telling her that they have lots of time, and for her to trust him since he has everything planned out. Ugh, and I have to describe this scene. Luckily, we are all spared from having to keep on looking at that since we are back at Navier's chambers where Laura, back from the punishment, rushes in with the news that the Emperor has announced that he will make Rashta his official concubine before the new year, which is right around the corner. Laura is fuming while Navier feels empty once more. Even though sometimes the Empress sends a gift to the new concubines to welcome them, Navier resolves that she will not be sending Rashta anything, since the only 2 reasons to do so are as if the concubine is already an acquaintance, or if they are from a noble family. None of those apply, so she won't be partaking in the gift-giving. In other news, the ladies-in-waiting tell Navier about some hot gossip that's been going around lately. Apparently, the Prince of the Western Kingdom will go to the New Year's celebration, and he's rumored to be super handsome. although a bit of a womanizer. The ladies ask the Empress if this is true, with sparkles in their eyes, since they might meet him, and Navier says that she doesn't know about his habit with the ladies, but indeed he is attending the event, which as Empress she is busy coordinating. Navier is about to take a sip of her tea when a footman tells her that Rashta is outside her door waiting to meet with her. She clenches her teacup, thinking that she doesn't want to meet her, but is still polite and tells them to let her in. In walks Rashta, and with an expressionless face that's been trained not to show her negative emotions, Navier congratulates her on officially becoming a concubine to the Emperor. Rashta seems elated by the congratulations. She says that she's there because the two of them are like sisters now. One of Navier's ladies-in-waiting literally chokes on her tea when she hears this, while Navier herself is in complete disbelief. Rashta even goes as far to say that they are like sisters because they share the same husband, to which not even Navier can hide her utterly dissatisfied and stunned expression. Navier has finally had it. I mean, she said they share her husband and wants to call her sister. Her patience reaches its limit, and whatever polite cordiality she was showing Rashta is thrown out the window as Navier resolutely says no. Of course, Rashta starts to once again rely on her only weapon, pity, and she starts getting all teary as she victimizes herself, asking if she doesn't want to call her sister because she doesn't like her. By the way, Rashta talks in the third person. Like, she says, "Is it because you don't like Rashta?" Girl, please, why are you talking like a child in this situation? You think you're cute and that will give you some extra points? Navier is firm in stating that they are not sisters of any sort and tells her to get out. Good job, Navier. Set some clear boundaries because this girl will clearly not respect any of the ones set by common sense. Rashta then complains about the whole situation with her newly assigned tutor, who can't believe she said the things she did. Tutor, teach the lady how to have some common sense, since you seem to understand how out of line she is. Make that your first lesson. Anyway, while walking in the garden, Navier finds feathers swaying in the air. She's puzzled by it, but the wondering does not last long, since soon after, a rustling of leaves leads her to the direction of the owner of the feathers. A golden bird is laying nearby, and Navier can't help but outstretch her hand trying to pet it. Much to her surprise, the bird flies right to her and stands perched on her hand, allowing Navier to caress it. Navier then reads the note that the bird is carrying, which says, "I'm a foreign guest who will be attending the New Year's celebration. I wrote this letter after a few drinks." She seems amused at the note and smiles at what appears to be a real wholehearted smile. Her ladies-in-waiting urge her to reply to the note from the mysterious foreign guest for fun. And she does. "Your bird flew here, so I'm sending back this reply. If it finds its way back, does this mean that this bird is smarter than its drunk master?" The bird nuzzles against Navier's hand and takes flight. Not long after, a man with golden hair is holding the reply with a smile. And he's not any man. From the divorce scene, we know that this is the prince from the Western Kingdom, and the man she is going to marry after leaving Sovieshu. Empress Navier and her fabulous ladies-in-waiting are all excited about the mysterious letter and the even more mysterious stranger who wrote it. However, the excitement is cut short, as when Empress Navier opens her door, she is met by the Emperor. He has a problem, and for some reason, he wants Navier to fix it. Who does this guy think he is? As if. Anyway, the Emperor explains that his beloved Rashta needs a lady-in-waiting. The problem is that none of the noble ladies want to fill in the role due to how low in rank Rashta is. I mean, can we really blame them? I'm definitely not cleaning up after the girl that broke up the royal couple. It's not going to look good on a resume. The Emperor thinks that if the other nobles see Empress Navier looking for Rashta's lady-in-waiting, they'll be more than willing to look for a lady-in-waiting or be one themselves. With that, he tells Navier to lead the search for Rashta's new maid. Isn't this wonderful? Navier hatches the idea to invite all the noblewomen for a tea party in order to look for a lady-in-waiting and ask all the women at once. However, when Navier asks, she's met with silence. No one seems to be really excited about the idea of waiting on the Emperor's mistress-to-be. It looks pretty hopeless, as all the noblewomen have heard rumors or stories about Rashta, making them unwilling to serve under her. And you know, I get it. After the most awkward tea party in existence, Navier is understandably exhausted. She flops into her room, but our winged friend is back. and the bird is carrying a brand new message from its mysterious stranger. The note attached to the bird's leg reads, "I'd like to think I'm a bit more intelligent than a bird. I've woken up from my drunken stupor now." Navier is excited to write back. She writes, "It seems as if you haven't awoken completely. What is the bird's name?" She ties the note to the bird and sends it off, excited for the response. Navier's attention is pulled away from her correspondence by the Emperor, who walks in to ask about the search for Rashta's lady-in-waiting. Navier tells him that none of the noblewomen want to work for his new mistress, and the Emperor blames Navier for this. The Emperor believes that Navier has been spreading rumors about Rashta. Really, Sovieshu? Really? Empress Navier is crying in her secret garden hiding place. She is interrupted by a screech, and she finds her faithful, ever-present messenger bird bringing her a new message from its master. Opening it, the message responds to Navier's previous question about the bird's name. It reads, "Is such a thing needed? You may name it if you like." Navier names the bird Queen, and the little feathered messenger flutters off into the night. Now, you would think that this would be the end of the story, but we actually see where Queen flies off too. Queen lands in a distant brush and transforms into a very handsome man. It is revealed that Queen is actually Heinry, the first in line to the Western Kingdom. As he is scolded by his attendant for getting distracted once again, the attention is put back on Navier. Her secret garden has been invaded by Rashta, who is still begging to become friends with the Empress. Navier is less than impressed. I mean, who wouldn't be? She explains that Rashta can be friends with the next mistress that the Emperor will inevitably bring in to replace Rashta. And Rashta, for what may be the 7,000th time in the series, cries to the Emperor. The Emperor confronts Navier on Rashta's behalf and leaves his ex-wife alone, sad and confused. What a guy. It's time for the New Year's ceremony, and Navier is less than excited. As she prepares herself, Navier is once again visited by Queen, her bird friend. Queen brings a note attached, agreeing to the name Queen, but also informing the Empress that he is in fact a boy bird. It's kind of cute that Queen is really just relaying messages to Navier from himself, without really being himself. It's like a game of telephone. Anyway, Navier has the pleasure of greeting a very important royal at the New Year's ceremony. His name is Heinry, and he is the Prince of the Western Kingdom. Heinry in his human form is such a charmer, and he instantly makes his way to Navier to sweep her off her feet. Lucky girl, am I right? That night, Queen visits Navier with a new note, asking the Empress to guess who Queen's owner is. The two exchange notes back and forth, with Queen's owner, Heinry, suggesting a bet between the two to guess the other's identity. And what is the prize, you might wonder? The prize is Queen. Sounds like a nice prize, don't you think? Empress Navier is greeted bright and early by Prince Heinry, who is requesting a tour of the palace. Navier says yes, because who wouldn't? And the pair make their way through the great halls of the castle. They are soon interrupted by no one else than Rashta, who wants a turn with touring the prince through the castle. Prince Heinry denies Rashta the opportunity, opting instead to stay with Empress Navier. As the two continue, they talk, and the prince wonders aloud if Navier thinks he is handsome. He then asks to be invited to the New Year's ball by Navier as her personal guest, instead of being a guest of the Emperor. Navier thinks about how it might look to invite the prince of the neighboring kingdom in such a way, but she leaves the invitation open nonetheless. I'd like to just add that Navier is so strong because personally, I would have folded like a lawn chair the second Heinry asked. Later that night, Queen the Bird makes an appearance as Navier is getting ready for the ball. Navier hopes to meet Queen's owner, but when she arrives at the ball escorted by the Emperor per custom, she sees something unexpected. The Empress sees Rashta in the middle of the rest of the guests. Sovieshu wastes no time in ditching Navier for Rashta, who is enjoying the spotlight and the Emperor's attention at the New Year's ball. Meanwhile, Prince Heinry is stealing hearts from everyone around him. People try to guess what the heir to the Western Kingdom wants from the ball. Maybe an affair? Or perhaps even an engagement? Whatever the reason, Heinry's presence is making waves at the ball, and who can blame them? He's so pretty. As people wonder about Heinry, Sovieshu takes his first dance with his mistress, Rashta. Since no one but an emperor can ask the empress to dance the first dance of the evening, Navier prepares herself for a very lonely night. That's why she and everyone else in the room is shocked when Heinry asks her for the first dance of the night. The two dance beautifully, talking about the things each has heard about one another, and promising each other not to believe the rumors that spread around court. Navier teases that Heinry's reputation as a Casanova might be true, but the pair is soon interrupted by Rashta, who is once again butting in. She wants to dance with Heinry, and Navier steps away to let her, as unfortunately, it's not polite to dance with a partner more than twice in a row. As Rashta tries to dance with Heinry, Navier dances with Sovieshu. Sovieshu tells Navier that taking Heinry as a lover would disgrace her. That is crazy coming from him. I think taking a mistress disgraced her more. Navier tries to respond, but she is cut off by the sound of crying. I wonder who that could be. Rashta is crying, and really, is anyone in the audience surprised at this point? She's upset because Prince Heinry refuses to dance with her. Sovieshu comes to her rescue, and as a result, shows everyone how head over heels he is for his new mistress. The display is kind of gross and less than proper, and Navier decides that she doesn't need to see it. Smart girl. She walks out of the ballroom and roams the hallways of the huge palace, and to her surprise, meets Prince Heinry. He's so cute, checking up on Navier. The Empress thanks him for walking through the halls with her, goes to her room, and shuts the door. Navier starts to cry, but she's interrupted by a knock at her window. On her balcony, our favorite feathery friend is back. Queen the bird, or Prince Heinry, as we the readers know him, flies in, and Navier is happy to see him. As Navier hugs the bird, a knock at the door grabs her attention. A countess tells the Empress that a noblewoman, Viscountess Verdi, doesn't want to be Navier's lady-in-waiting anymore. The next day, we see why Verdi doesn't want to work for Navier anymore. The reason? Rashta. Rashta has taken Verdi as her own lady-in-waiting, and Navier sees them both as she is outside gossiping with friends. Navier learns that the palace is finding out about Prince Heinry exchanging letters with an anonymous pen pal. Sound familiar? Navier's ladies put it together that the anonymous pen pal was the Empress, but Navier wants to remain anonymous in order to remain genuine friends with the prince. Meanwhile, the gossip has reached our favorite person, Rashta. Verdi reveals to Rashta that she thinks the anonymous pen pal is the Empress. Rashta decides that it would be fun to pull a prank with Verdi, since Verdi tells Rashta that she knows what the letters were about. On the third day of the New Year's ceremony, Rashta sends one of her servants with the info about the letters to Prince Heinry, and she makes the girl act as if the anonymous letters are from her. This doesn't really work, though, since we know Prince Heinry is delivering his own letters. Awkward. As a result, Heinry knows the girl is lying, and he also knows that someone gave her the information. He's right, and someone does step forward. Rashta claims herself to be Heinry's pen pal. When it comes to attention, she can't help herself, can she? Navier's ladies-in-waiting are furious that Rashta would dare to try to steal Prince Heinry away from their empress. But Navier isn't worried. She goes about her day as an empress should, focusing all her attention on the final task of the New Year's ceremony. She has to host a dinner for all the important guests from the neighboring kingdoms, and it must go smoothly. Navier is especially worried about one guest in particular, Grand Duke Kaufmann, prince from the kingdom of Lucht. Kaufmann is a new face to the rest of the royals in the Eastern Empire. His country's ways and manners are unfamiliar to Navier. He's mysterious, very gifted in magic, and very, very handsome. And Navier wants to make the best impression. But let's not get distracted or off topic. As the dinner unfolds, Rashta is still trying to convince Heinry that she was his pen pal. The court seems to think that she's convinced him because rumors go around that Heinry is treating Rashta well, to the point that it makes Sovieshu jealous. Oh well, it's not like he doesn't deserve it. Heinry's flirting with Rashta comes to a very sudden end, though, because she's messed up a detail that only the true recipient of the letters would know. Heinry reveals that she's been messing up all day, and he's not happy that such an esteemed lady would be such a liar. We aren't happy either, Heinry. Not surprised and not happy. Sovieshu doesn't like that Rashta is finally being called out, and he warns Prince Heinry to show some respect to his mistress. The two men butt heads, making the dinner awkward and not impressing anyone, including Grand Duke Kaufman, much to Navier's worry. Then, for what may be the 2000th time since the New Year's ceremony started, Rashta starts to cry. She says that Prince Heinry simply hates her for not being a royal woman. Sovieshu gets even angrier and challenges Heinry to a duel. Heinry accepts, and Empress Navier calls off the dinner and stops Prince Heinry and the Emperor from fighting over Rashta's lies. As Navier leaves the dining room, Rashta decides to tag along. Taking the opportunity, Navier confronts Rashta on even more of her lies. She asks Rashta why she's been telling everyone Navier is sending her gifts. Rashta doesn't give a straight answer, which is no surprise to any of us. She instead asks Navier if she is still upset over the letter incident, revealing to Navier that Rashta knows Prince Heinry has been writing to the Empress all along. As Sovieshu and Prince Heinry pass the two women, Rashta starts crying, which pulls the Emperor's attention to the conversation. Sovieshu accuses Navier of being vicious and petty, but our girl Navier doesn't take that lightly. She tells Sovieshu not to use her name, as it was Sovieshu who really sent the gifts to Rashta while using Navier's name. Prince Heinry is impressed with this empowered side of the Empress, and he volunteers to correct Sovieshu's mistake and to tell everyone that Sovieshu is the one behind the gifts. Sovieshu doesn't like how this sounds, and it looks like he and Prince Heinry are about to fight again. But suddenly, a blue-haired servant rushes up to Prince Heinry and pulls him away. The servant is Prince Heinry's attendant, and he's mad that Prince Heinry is making such a show of himself and angering the Emperor. He tells the prince that his spying won't be very effective if he continues to be so bold. But Prince Heinry doesn't want to listen. He opts instead to turn his attendant into a bird, just like how Prince Heinry turns into a bird. He gives him a note addressed to someone named Ergi, and he promises to stay out of trouble. Later, Navier and her ladies-in-waiting are interrupted during tea by our beautiful bird queen. Queen the bird has a note attached to his ankle. I've revealed who I am so I could lose the bet, but you aren't even participating. Why? Navier writes back that she'd just like to remain pen pals, explaining to Queen that the Empress of the Eastern Empire and the Prince of the Western Kingdom would be the subject of terrible rumors if they were to meet. Rashta is crying. Again. There's no room for her at the special banquet being held for the final day of the New Year's ceremony, and not even Sovieshu can squeeze her in on the guest list. Sovieshu has the audacity to ask Navier to squeeze his mistress in on her guest list, and of course, Navier says no. I mean, come on, man. At the ball, Navier meets Grand Duke Kaufman. He seems to be in a better mood because he actually talks to Navier. He isn't the biggest fan of Sovieshu or Rashta, and who can blame him? He explains that in his home country, Luopt, the king and queen are united in everything, and a mistress could be executed by the queen as soon as she is found. Navier tells him that she can't do this, with Kaufman warning her that she should protect what is hers. And can we just take a moment to appreciate the Grand Duke? He's tall, he's handsome, he knows relationship boundaries, and he seems like the strong, silent type. He's perfect. But I'll focus on the story. As Kaufman makes his leave, Prince Heinry finds Navier. He says that he's gotten her message and understands why she wants to remain anonymous. We love men who can really understand us, don't we? Prince Heinry lets Navier know that he figured out that the anonymous pen pal was her, without telling Navier that he himself was delivering his own letters in the form of queen. Sneaky, sneaky. Navier and Prince Heinry have a little moment where they really connect. Prince Heinry explains that his position comes with loneliness, as he can't really trust anyone as a close friend. Navier feels the same way, and is honestly surprised that someone known as a Casanova can be so deep and thoughtful. The pair agree to remain friends, but only in secret. Meanwhile, our favorite character, Rashta, has managed to worm her way into the banquet. She's soaking in everyone's attention, and she's focused on how beautiful she is and how her beauty is almost a curse. She's so modest. Her thoughts get interrupted, however, because Rashta spots a mysterious man across the banquet hall. She drops her drink in surprise and fear. Who is this mystery man? Viscount Lachu is our mystery man. He is the lord of the house that Rashta ran from back when she was a slave, and he's just as surprised to see her as she is to see him. He lets everyone know that she used to be a slave, since Emperor Sovieshu isn't around to stop him. Navier has had it with all the nonsense around Rashta, and she tells Sovieshu that she wants to be done with the subject. Sovieshu accuses Navier of inviting Viscount Lachu on purpose in order to sabotage his union with Rashta and to make her look bad in front of everyone in high society. The audacity is outstanding, to say the least. Of course, Navier denies she did this because she isn't crazy. Navier says that she would have no way of knowing if the Viscount knew Rashta or if he would come, and leaves the Emperor there. On her way out, Navier runs into Prince Heinry. He checks on Navier, and Navier asks to see Queen to cheer her up. Whoops, looks like Prince Heinry is about to get caught. What is he gonna do? While Navier and Heinry negotiate Queen, Emperor Sovieshu is out for revenge. The Emperor has summoned Viscount Lachu and has him groveling for mercy at his feet. His offense? Exposing the royal mistress Rashta to everyone as a liar and a former slave. Sovieshu wants an apology for embarrassing him and his mistress. Viscount Lachu lies to Sovieshu, saying that he mistook Rashta for another runaway. Meanwhile, Prince Heinry is still trying to convince Navier that Queen is too shy to be seen right now. Navier takes the prince's excuse as not wanting to be alone with her at night, and instead asks Prince Heinry what Queen likes. And wouldn't you know it? But Prince Heinry gets all shy. Prince Heinry says that Queen likes Navier. Isn't that so cute? However, Empress Navier was really asking what Queen likes to eat, and Prince Heinry answers that Queen will eat anything. Prince Heinry leaves to send Queen to Empress Navier, and Navier hatches an idea. While waiting for Queen to arrive, Navier gets her hands on some mealworms to feed Queen. She tries to feed the bird, unknowingly feeding mealworms to Prince Heinry, and Queen flies into the night. The next day, Prince Heinry is sure to tell Navier that Queen doesn't eat insects, alive or dead. As Prince Heinry and Navier discuss Queen's diet, Rashta is breaking down about her encounter with Viscount Lachu. She's nervous about what people think of her, as being a mistress to the Emperor finally paints her in a good light, which is so much different than being a slave. I just want to say, that's a valid reason to want to remain a mistress. I wish she would go about it a different way. She meets with the Viscount, and he tells Rashta that her future in the court depends on if he tells the truth about her being a slave or not. He also tells her something surprising. He's hiding the baby Rashta left behind in her old life as a slave. Rashta breaks. She accuses Viscount Lachu of lying, saying that he had her baby killed. Lachu tells Rashta that he would never have the baby killed, as the baby is still his grandson. It's really just got interesting, didn't it? Lachu wants to be Rashta's eyes and ears in court, telling her that she won't be able to survive on her own in the Emperor's world. It's getting intense, so let's check back with Navier and Prince Heinry. They're still talking about Queen's diet, with Navier really wanting to feed Queen for the good job he does of carrying letters. I think she'd flip if she knew it was the prince. Prince Heinry brushes her off, distracting her with the fact that it is Queen's birthday soon. Navier's birthday is also coming up, but before the two can make any plans, they are interrupted by Sovieshu. Sovieshu wants to know how long Prince Heinry plans on staying. He takes Navier away from Prince Heinry, stating that he wants to discuss something private with her. Sovieshu warns Navier once again that being with Prince Heinry would cause a scandal. Can it be more scandalous than a mistress who's a runaway slave? Probably not. Anyway, Sovieshu surprises Navier, and everyone reading, by apologizing for accusing Navier of inviting the Viscount to sabotage Rashta. He invites Empress Navier to the imperial villa to celebrate her birthday and make amends. Sovieshu also wants an update of the Grand Duke Kaufman. He reveals that if the Empire deals with Kaufman's country, the Grand Duke would want Empress Navier to be in the deals personally. Navier returns to Prince Heinry and tells him that they cannot dine together on her birthday because Emperor Sovieshu wants to take his wife to the imperial villa. Prince Heinry is disappointed, but no worries. He decides to get a gift for Navier instead. He discusses getting her a ring before turning into a queen. As queen, Prince Heinry finds Navier and returns her handkerchief. Navier notices that Queen smells like Prince Heinry. I wonder why. But this flusters Prince Heinry and causes him to fly away. He is found by his attendant, who questions Prince Heinry. The attendant asks the prince if the person he is constantly seeing is Empress Navier, and Prince Heinry tries to avoid every question. Prince Heinry's attendant is worried about scandal if word gets out that the prince is courting the empress of another empire. But both men are interrupted by Rashta. Prince Heinry tries to ignore Rashta, but she calls his attention back to her. Seeing that her tears don't really work on Prince Heinry, Rashta turns to another trick up her sleeve. Flattery. Rashta tells Prince Heinry that he is a wonderful man for not treating her any differently since word got out that she might be a runaway slave. Sure, he's not too fond of her, and they both know it. But it's better than the mocking she gets now in court. Speaking of court, there is a new addition. Ergy Claude, the Duke and a good friend of Prince Heinry, is in court, and he spent the whole day with Rashta. It looks like they're getting along pretty well, with Ergy even punching someone who tried to embarrass her by bringing up her slave status in front of the Duke. What is it about Rashta? The girl's gotta know some magic, right? Anyway, Ergy advises Rashta to point the court's attention to someone else if she wants the rumors to stop. I wonder what he's up to. Navier wakes to a note reading "Trust me" before her meeting with diplomats from several different countries. The task of how to hold relations with Lupt is not an easy one, and the meeting drags on forever, with the only thing decided being the fact that Navier needs to fix the situation. Not very helpful if you ask me. On the way out, Navier sees Grand Duke Kaufman, and she asks him why he wanted her to oversee the diplomatic relations with Lupt personally. He says that she was the only one in the royal court to care enough to understand Luptian words, and implies that her dedication to learning the language shows that she will care about the relations. Just as she is about to leave, however, Navier bumps into one last person, Sovieshu. He's not happy. Sovieshu stares Navier down, and she notices that he didn't look happy during the meeting either. He asks her one thing before the chapter ends. "Empress, do you find foreigners attractive?" Sovieshu is jealous. It's the only explanation. He confronts Navier and accuses her of sighing over Grand Duke Kaufman. No one ever bothers him about sighing over Rashta, but I guess when you're emperor, you get special privilege. Ugh. After Navier's diplomatic meetings are over, she is tasked with looking at the budget. And guess what? She has to decide how much to spend on the emperor's mistress, Rashta. The meeting goes well into the night, and as Navier is spending time in her garden, she is approached by her old lady-in-waiting. She doesn't work for Navier anymore, but she wants to tell the empress some important scoop on Rashta. She believes that Viscount Lotshu is blackmailing Rashta. Before Navier can say a word, a sound in the bushes sends the lady-in-waiting running. And who is lurking in the greenery? Rashta. Rashta says she has a question, but I think she's really there to start trouble, like she always does. Rashta asks about Duchess Tuwania. Apparently, the Duchess is always surrounded by men, and according to Rashta, she loves the attention, and such behavior isn't fit for a lady. I don't think it's proper for a lady to be the mistress of a married man either, but I guess everyone can have their opinion. Anyway, Navier shuts Rashta down completely, telling her that the Duchess would never be improper and to not bring it up again. Back in her own room, Navier wonders why Rashta would even ask about the Duchess. Because she wants to start something, girl. Navier orders her lady-in-waiting, Countess Eliza, to tell her about any strange rumors. Navier believes that Rashta is trying to find someone to spread rumors about her to keep attention off of her at court, but she doesn't have the time to focus on that. Navier's birthday is coming up soon, and as planned, she and the Emperor Sovieshu are going to travel to the imperial villa. Navier reminisces with her husband about their childhood and how she planted a special wishing tree at the villa when she and Sovieshu were children. Sovieshu still believes that Navier wished to be taller, but really? Our sweet Navier wished to have a good relationship and marriage with Sovieshu. That kind of fell through, didn't it? With her birthday ticking closer, Navier is getting all sorts of presents. Magazines, books, clothes, gems, and a mysterious love potion. The biggest surprise comes from Prince Heinry, flying in as queen to deliver his own gift to Navier. He's such a sweetheart. But what did he get her? Navier opens Prince Heinry's gift, and there's a note. It reads,
"I think baking is another one of my talents. I'd appreciate a compliment or two."
Inside the box is the most delicious, scrumptious-looking cake I have ever seen. And I'm definitely not saying this because I'm a little hungry. Man can cook. Navier agrees, and the cake has another present inside. Prince Heinry has put diamonds in the cake. Personally, I'd love something like that for my birthday, but it's a little too much for our empress. Queen flies away, embarrassed that his owner would get the empress such an extravagant gift, and Navier decides to visit Prince Heinry to thank him personally. She meets Prince Heinry's personal servant, who honestly is probably stalling for time, as a crash is heard before Prince Heinry makes his appearance to Navier. Navier notices that he doesn't look as put together as he normally does, almost as if he was undressed. Or a bird. Navier also notices that Prince Heinry and Queen have the same eyes, but her thought is interrupted by the prince asking if she enjoyed her cake. Prince Heinry is excited to show off some of his baking and cooking skills, and he tells Navier that it is a loved hobby of his. Navier admits she's a bad cook, but the prince tells her that bad and good cooks are made for each other. Navier also wants to know where Queen is, and Prince Heinry covers himself by saying that Queen is out hunting. Navier accepts this and she turns to leave, but before she goes, the prince asks her if she enjoyed her gift. He asks if she thought it was too much, and Navier is shocked that he knew that she felt that way. He explains that she might have hesitated accepting the gift due to them not knowing each other for long. But he assures the Empress that the Western Empire is full of gems, and a gift like hers isn't really out of touch. Navier tells Heinry that she now understands why the prince is always accused of being a womanizer, as giving gifts like diamonds can give people the wrong impression. Prince Heinry tells her that the real womanizer is his friend the Duke Ergi, and he warns her to stay away from him. Apparently, all the women who get involved with him get a nasty case of bad luck. Sounds pretty bad for Rashta, right? It is the day before Navier's birthday, and she and Sovieshu are supposed to be heading out to the Imperial Villa. However, Sovieshu claims that something has come up, and makes Navier travel ahead of him. Navier contemplates divorce as she travels, and she knows that asking for a divorce first isn't an option for her. Rashta bursts in on Emperor Sovieshu, who's getting ready to depart to join Navier at the Imperial Villa. She wastes no time in flattering the Emperor, telling him how handsome he looks and fawning over how nice his clothes are. Rashta also shows him a necklace, and Sovieshu identifies it as a Blue Vahan crest. Rashta is a little disappointed that he doesn't ask where she got it from, but she forgets that feeling as soon as she follows him to his carriage. Rashta isn't too keen on letting Sovieshu leave, and as she sees the present that the Emperor is going to give Navier, she decides that it would be best that she tag along as well to the villa. Sovieshu actually makes a good decision for once, and tells her that the Empress might not want the Emperor's mistress around during her birthday. But he does promise Rashta to take her to the villa during her own birthday. The man is insufferable. Anyway, Sovieshu leaves Rashta, who is worried about the married couple spending time together. She tells herself not to worry, but as she roams the halls alone, Rashta catches the eye of her former master, happy to see that Rashta is without the Emperor or his protection. Meanwhile, Navier wakes up to the villa to peace and quiet. She reads a book and is interrupted by Emperor Sovieshu finally arriving. He reveals his gift to Navier, a music box, complete with earrings, a ring, and a necklace. He offers to put the necklace on Navier, and Navier allows him to place the jewelry around her neck. As he closes the clasp, Sovieshu kisses Navier on her neck, surprising her. I wasn't expecting Sovieshu to make a move on Navier, and neither was Navier. She is obviously not into it, and Sovieshu doesn't like getting rejected. The two split for the day, with Navier dining alone. While she is eating, Navier is visited by Queen, who flew all the way to see the Empress. Just as Navier is reuniting with Queen, an attendant bursts through the door to report that Sovieshu has collapsed with fever. Navier rushes to her husband and sends for the palace physician. Meanwhile, Rashta is being blackmailed by Viscount Lotshu. The Viscount wants money, and he knows that without the Emperor around, he can get it. He tells Rashta that she should be worried. A shared vacation between the Emperor and the Empress means that their relationship could heal and she could be tossed aside. Viscount Lotshu gets his money in the form of rings from Rashta and leaves her to contemplate his words. Around the palace, word of the Emperor's sickness starts to spread, and Rashta worries that it might really be an excuse for the Emperor and Empress to spend more time together. She wants to go to the villa, but no one can really fulfill that request but for the Emperor and Empress. 4 days pass, and Navier and Sovieshu are still at the villa, and Rashta is beyond worried at this point. She thinks on how to worm her way back in between the Emperor and Empress, and is advised in the garden by Duke Urgi on what to do. I wonder what she will decide. At the Imperial Villa, Sovieshu is reaping what he has sown. He is sick, and Navier says that he's been working too hard. Personally, I think this is the universe punishing him, but I could be wrong. Navier asks if Sovieshu wants Rashta. If Rashta takes her place as Sovieshu's nurse, Navier could go back to the palace to catch up on her work. Sovieshu refuses, saying that his mistress isn't a calming presence. A week passes, and finally Sovieshu is healthy enough to return to the palace. Once there, Rashta makes a big show of sobbing and running to her love, but Navier ignores them both, opting instead to focus on catching up on all the work she's missed. The days fly by, and while she is unwinding at a tea party hosted by Duchess Tuania, Navier is accosted by Duke Urgi, who has brought along Rashta. Duke Urgi introduces himself formally to Empress Navier, and the Duchess questions why Rashta was brought along. Urgi explains that Rashta would benefit from attending a social event, and the tea party continues. Gossip turns to the subject of a Lady Alessia, and Rashta asks who the woman was. Duke Urgi explains that she was Rashta's predecessor. Lady Alessia was the mistress of the former emperor. Rashta is excited to hear about another mistress, but her excitement is cut short as Duke Urgi explains that she fell out of favor with the late emperor and was kicked out of the palace. Rashta turns the conversation in her own cute way, however, by saying that it must be common for nobles to have many lovers. She comments on the number of lovers that the Duchess Tuania has, and her comment offends the Duchess, who ends the tea party then and there. Rashta and Duke Urgi discuss the tea party after everyone leaves. Rashta questions if her rumor that she told at the tea party would be enough to turn people against the Duchess, and Urgi assures her that it will be if she keeps going. Duke Urgi leaves Rashta alone to think, and he goes to find Navier. Urgi waits for 3 hours for Navier, and he cuts right to the chase. Urgi asks Navier what Heinry has told her about him. When Navier doesn't answer right away, Duke Urgi tells her that she and Heinry aren't two people who would be in the same circles. The Duke calls Prince Heinry shallow, and Navier wonders if Urgi doesn't want her to be friends with Heinry. Duke Urgi warns Navier that Prince Heinry is two-faced and almost reveals that the prince has been preparing to do something. But before he can say what the something is, he's interrupted by Emperor Sovieshu. Sovieshu isn't happy with all the male attention Navier has been getting lately, and accuses her once again of being attracted to foreigners. Guy can dish it out, but he can't take it, I guess. Sovieshu tries to warn Navier of men from the other nations who might sweet-talk her. So Navier sarcastically assures him that her new lover would be from their own nation. That seems to scare Sovieshu off, and he leaves Navier to wonder about what Duke Urgi said and what Prince Heinry might be preparing. Sovieshu goes to his room to pout, and Rashta is along with him, as usual. She asks what is on his mind, and Sovieshu asks Rashta if Duke Urgi and Navier are close. Rashta thinks back to her previous conversation with Duke Urgi in the gardens. Duke Urgi offers to seduce the Empress for Rashta in order to keep her attention away from Emperor Sovieshu. Rashta told him not to, but she assumes that the Duke is going to go for it anyway. Rashta assures Emperor Sovieshu that the Duke and the Empress are not close, because the Duke is her own friend instead. Sovieshu also notices that Rashta isn't wearing the ring he gave her. Sovieshu says that the ring had a spell cast on it to make Rashta's scars disappear. So Rashta cries and says that she gave it to a poor servant to hide the fact that she really gave it to Viscount Latshu. The only other ring like that one belongs to Navier. But Sovieshu promises Rashta that if he can find another, he'll give it to her. I swear, if he takes Navier's ring, I'll lose it. That's all we have time for today. Find out what Sovieshu will do in the next episode of The Remarried Empress. Thank you so much for watching, and please remember to like this video and comment what you thought. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, have a great day.